Hey everyone, happy Monday and welcome to this high value publishing session. My name is Eric Schoenfeld. I'm with Nearview Media and I am joined today by Dan Affrick, who is with Seamans Media. He'll be joining us here momentarily. Dan, if you're on, why don't you go ahead and start your video and unmute there. Also want to let you know that I'm sorry that Nick Pitaro with MagHub was going to be joining us today, but he and his wife got incredibly sick last night. And so our thoughts and prayers go out to you, Nick, for you guys to speedy recovery. We wish you were here, but we're going to dive on ahead without you. Dan, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hi to everybody.
I love working with Dan. He's one of the really good people in media, works with Seamans Media. Dan, why don't you introduce yourself briefly, who you are, and tell a little bit about Seamans Media here as well.
Sure. So my name is Dan, as Eric said. I've been with Seamans Media here for a little over a year. And we are a publishing company that's been around for 2.5 decades, but still very much feels like a startup. Started with the magazines, the printed pieces. The magazines we realized needed to be digitized, so we've got those online. Then, of course, needed to have the websites. Since then, we've ventured into newsletters, to podcasts. We have our own podcast studio here in-house, and we partner with a regional TV network that hosts all Boston Bruins and Boston Red Sox games. So as you can probably imagine, yes, our product is around the sporting world with a focus on youth athletes. So think the kids in the high school, prep, private school, college, university space with a desire to advance both their education and their athletic careers to new heights. So it's an exciting place to work and be, and I've had the pleasure of working with Eric since I started here, since we work closely with him to help us with our digital stuff.
Great. Yeah, so Seamans Media is a regional sports media company. They're doing some really, really neat things, and I'm really appreciative of Dan coming out because we're going to talk today about advertiser bad campaign alignment. What does that mean? This will be an interesting conversation because I'm sure we've all dealt with this. Before we dive into advertiser bad campaign alignment, though, a little housekeeping I want to get out of the way. We are recording this session and they will all be available at highvaluepublishing.com. Any links that we talk about in here we'll make available when the recording's posted. And if you're not yet subscribed to High Value Publishing, you can get it as a podcast on your favorite podcasting platform. If you've got any questions for Dan or I today, or any comments, because this is going to be an interesting discussion, please click that chat button on your Zoom toolbar, put them in there. I'll be monitoring the chat. Or if you're watching us recorded, you can post it at highvaluepublishing.com. Little shout out to What's New in Publishing. Always appreciative of these guys. Great publication for us as media companies. Go check them out. They republish these episodes. And I wanted to thank MagHub and Nick for kind of being the impetus to put this session together. Again, sorry, Nick, you couldn't join us today. It's not sponsored by them. This is just an idea Nick and I had, and we brought Dan in. So I think we're going to enjoy this one. The next thing I want to do here is I need a couple of volunteers. A couple of folks who are here live. We got quite a few publishers live here with us. Put your URL into the chat. Don't be shy. I promise I'll be gentle. But we want to take a look we're done here, at a few of the ad campaigns that are running on the various sites, so we can show you guys live examples and some analysis of the ad campaigns that are there. So please put your URL in the chat. If you don't put it in the chat, I know who a lot of you are, and I'll bring up your website anyway. That's not a threat. It's just, just trying to get people to dive in. Thanks, Anne-Marie. Appreciate that. We'll take a look at a couple of those. All right, let's get into the meat here. I brought this slide up because it just cracks me up. But have any of you ever had, Dan, I'm sure you've never had this, any advertisers who have been unhappy with how their ad campaign performed on your site or in your email and then blamed you? But you knew it was them because they were either using the wrong expectations or they delivered bad creative. Has anybody ever experienced that? Let me know in the chat. Dan, I'm sure you've never experienced this, have you?
Oh, never. Absolutely never. Of course. It's almost a built-in response sometimes, depending on how prepared you've made the client aware of what to expect and how to set KPI, which we will undoubtedly talk about soon. But yes,
this happens a ton.
Yeah.
I think it happens more than we know, and probably even more than our advertisers are telling us. They just don't come back. And so what we're going to talk about today with fixing your advertiser's campaign alignment, and we'll show you exactly what that means here. This is going to be your key, in my opinion, in getting repeat advertising business, getting those advertisers to come back again and again and again, because we're going to set the proper expectations and help them with this. So what I mean by campaign alignment, it's this. Whatever the advertiser's campaign goal is, needs to align with the creative that they send you. By the way, we're going to look at web ads today, but it could be a web ad, it could be a direct email blast, it could be a webinar that they're doing, it could be anything, a social media post. But whatever their campaign goal is needs to align with their creative and then needs to align with the metrics that they're going to use to evaluate the success of the campaign. These three things must be in alignment for your advertisers to be happy and to be successful. So, I mean, yes, we're protecting our own revenue, but we're also helping our advertisers be more successful with their ad dollars. Because you'd be surprised how many, or maybe you wouldn't be, how many creative agencies don't get this. They're and a lot of advertisers don't either. A lot do, but a lot don't. So let's talk a little bit about what that means from an ad objective standpoint. I'm going to break these things up into two big buckets. Dan, maybe you'll agree or disagree with me, but I typically going to break it up into two big buckets. One, direct response ad objectives. Right, this is where you're trying to elicit an action of some sort from the viewer, either a click or a registration of some sort or lead or even a purchase. Any of those things could be direct response. You're trying to see the person who sees the ad, you're trying to elicit an action from them. And so typically advertisers, agencies will measure these by the cost per action. Now, we may not charge that way. We may charge on a CPM or we may charge on a flat basis, but they're going to ultimately evaluate it on a cost per action, cost per click, cost per lead, cost per purchase. It's incumbent then upon the advertiser to deliver you creative that uses good direct response tactics, or it just won't work. We'll talk about that here in a minute. The other big bucket I lump this into is branding. Dan, would you have anything else you'd break this out into, or would you kind of keep these two buckets as well?
I would, yeah. And obviously with both cases, and this is nothing new to anyone here on this call, but frequency is going to be a huge driver for both. So, the fact that McDonald's is one of the biggest brands in the world, and yet they still advertise to us every day says one thing. The fact that direct response, even if you were to say we're giving away free $100 bills, people might still be dubious and think, what's the catch? Who's giving away free $100 bills? You still need to have that frequency. So I think that kind of is the overarching key to both of these things. But those would be the two big ones.
Totally agreed. That, I mean, you've still got to hit that message with people multiple times, no matter which objective you're going to use. With the branding side, though, I want to be very clear about this because I think a lot of advertisers, a lot of us as publishers don't get this. Branding ads are designed to influence attitude or perception of a brand. They're not designed to elicit an action. Direct response elicits an action. Branding influences attitudes and perceptions. So things like brand awareness, brand favorability, purchase intent, right? Message association, all those things are kind of branding objectives that are used out there. In these cases, you cannot measure the influence of a branding campaign by clicks or leads or purchases, by actions. It's measured by the reach and frequency that you're delivering to the message to, and then really it's measured by the lift in certain key brand metrics. It's like the lift in brand awareness. Now, that's usually when you're going to see like really big advertisers, big brand advertisers, large companies can do that. If you ever go on YouTube and you're watching YouTube videos, you'll every once in a while say, hey, which of these advertisers have you heard of, right? Well, guess what? That's a brand survey, a brand impact survey. They're measuring the effectiveness of their YouTube advertisers on lift and brand. So you can measure, hey, these people saw the ad, these people didn't see the ad. What's the difference in brand awareness or brand favorability or purchase intent between the control and exposed group? Or you'll sometimes measure, hey, let's do a pre-campaign measurement of people's brand perceptions or product or message perceptions. And then let's do a post-campaign survey and let's see the lift. So that's really the only way to do that. It's very difficult to implement. It takes a lot of scale to implement. So a lot of smaller publishers don't do this, and a lot of advertisers don't want to spend the money to do that. So we use reach and frequency as kind of a proxy for how many people we're influencing with the attitude and perception. But to do this, you've got to use brand creative tactics. So this is the difference between direct response and branding objectives at a high level. Here's the biggest problems though. This is the two biggest things that I ever see with ad campaigns. One, we'll be talking with the advertiser, say, oh yeah, it's a branding campaign. We're launching a new product line and we want people to be aware of it. We know they're not going to buy. We just want to make sure people know about this. So when they go to make that purchase, they'll think of us. And then they deliver you a branding creative that indeed says, hey, XYZ company, we're now launching this. And then they come back at the end and they're mad at you because they didn't get enough clicks. I guess no one's ever experienced that, right? The second biggest problem is they'll say, no, it's definitely a direct response goal. We want clicks. We want signups. We want people to sign up for our email newsletter. We want people to download this ebook or white paper or whatever, or sign up for a webinar. So they have a direct response goal, but then they deliver you a branding creative that has no incentive, no call to action, right? It's just a kind of a generic branding creative. And then they're upset. They didn't get enough clicks or enough registrations. These are the two biggest problems that I've seen. And Dan, I don't want to necessarily ask you a leading question here, but do you see any other typical kinds of problems, or are these kind of the two biggest issues that you'll typically see with advertiser campaigns?
Yeah, I think those are the biggest issues. And I think I have the background of being a graphic designer and art director in a past life. So being able to see and recognize what ads look like when they're sent to us, it doesn't take too much to recognize what's the difference between these two. And obviously being able to say, okay, well, this looks like a very direct response message. First of all, it's likely that there's going to be way too much text in it, which I'm sure we'll address. But and it's less is more. How do you create a very impactful message right at the onset if it's a direct response? If it's branding, less is more is also the case. But to be able to recognize that and acknowledge and have the client also acknowledge what it is that they're sending, you can say, like you said, Eric, oh, okay, so this is a branding message. Great. We'll get you X thousand eyeballs a day on our website. And then we can look at that, just the number of impressions that we've gotten. But if it's a direct response message, well, then they better have some kind of system at the other end that when they get the clicks to do what they say they're going to do, that they're set up. And I do have a specific example that I can talk about real quickly here, which is a client of mine that, Eric, you actually helped me build this out. They do custom uniforms, and what they were trying to do with their message was get people to click and to build to build up a database and to schedule appointments with people. And their message was substantial in size, and they knew that what the format they were working, whether it was the billboard ad on the website or if it was the newsletter that they were using. And what they did was, when people clicked, it wasn't just taking the website. It literally took people to their Calendly account, where then people could book a reservation of time to speak with someone, so that someone on their end got alerted to say, so-and-so would like to speak with you at 2:30 on Tuesday. And then that way—
Who was that? And could you mind if I bring up their campaign?
Squad Locker.
Squad Locker, that's right.
Yeah. So it was obviously not a, they understood that this was not a one-call close, like, click here and receive such and such. It was click here, schedule an appointment, talk with us, we'll be consultative. And they could track the responses that way. And everything had the UTM codes, which I'm guessing most, if not everyone listening, knows about, to be able to say, well, this is tethered to that, click here, sends you to that. We can look at all the numbers and logistics. It's exciting. It's cool to do. And we do have that technology, but I think it's still new for some folks.
It is still new. And I'm glad you mentioned talking about kind of some of the tactics, because I did want to talk briefly about that. So we talked about like the two major campaign objectives, direct response and branding. So I'm going to go through at a high level. These are the keys to a successful direct response creative. So number one, you've got to have a clear audience need or want. So I always talk about, you could be, if you don't have a product that people actually need or want, it's hard to sell it. I remember when I was working with HarperCollins, we'd have some books that were just, these were going to be good sellers. You have some books, these were just going to be total dogs. And I don't care how much marketing you put behind it, the response you got on this campaign was going to be a whole lot better than the response to this campaign. There's just nothing we as a publisher can do about that. But you've got to address a clear audience need or want with your campaigns. You've got to have a strong incentive or reason to click. So I picked this one because I thought this is a B2B ad campaign. This was an ad designed to reach convenience store operators by Nestle. And Nestle was trying to get them to stock a new flavor of Coffee Mate Creamer, new butterscotch, which sounds pretty good actually. And so this was run on a B2B websites. I thought this was really well done. It's a very strong incentive and reason to click. They're trying to get these convenience store operators to click here to get a free sample so they could consider stocking it in their store. Strong call to action right there. Click here for a free sample. It's very clear. This is what you should do. Don't expect people to know. This is direct marketing 101. Don't expect people to know what to do. Tell them what to do. A sense of urgency always helps if you can build that in. And as well as a time, quantity, or other limitations. So this wasn't really brought out, but you can see it was, while supplies last and some things like that. I'll throw out one other thing. If your advertiser is looking for more than just clicks, you mentioned this, Dan, if they're looking for signups for example, or purchases, or whatever it may happen to be, you've got to make sure that your landing page also uses great direct response tactics. Right, that it aligns with the campaign, that it's very clear that the next step is very clear on there. There's not a bunch of distractions that are going to take people off in other directions. Right, I'm not going to go into landing page design here, but as you're talking with your advertisers, you've got to make sure, okay, if this is a direct response campaign, please make sure you use great direct response tactics. And here they are. And if I sign up something, you've got to make sure your landing page does that. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of clients that want to sell tickets to events. So they'll send me their ad. Okay, so the ad passes the sniff test. It inherently has a call to action. Such and such an event on March 31st at 5:00, and tickets on sale now. So some of that is automatically built in. And then they'll send me the website that they want to send people to when they click. Naturally, I click it to test it out. And it's like, if it goes to the homepage, well, you're making extra work for them. So then I'll look around and I'll dig around and I'll say, well, where's the actual page that takes them directly to the page that has the book buy the tickets. And then I'll say, right, don't you want to send them directly here? Just take one step out of this here, because you've got people for such a short attention span. I mean, you got to just send them right there. It's like when people walk into a store and you're talking about a sale, why not put the stuff on sale right there at the front of the store?
Agreed. So let's talk about branding. What's a branding campaign? Here's a great example of a branding campaign. And I used B2B in this example because I oftentimes think B2B is the hardest, but we'll look at a bunch of consumer stuff here too. So with branding campaigns, one clear message. Don't try to shove multiple messages. By the way, this is my rule of thumb for everything. Every web page, every email, every ad, every social media post, one message. And in direct response, one call to action. When you start trying to cram everything at the kitchen sink into one place, it actually destroys response and destroys branding impact. Anyway, one clear message, a continual brand and message visibility, so you can see win trust. This stays up. It doesn't animate away. No one's going to sit here and watch your 15-second Steven Spielberg animation. No one's going to sit here and do it. You've got to, so you ought to always be there. A reinforcing visual, in this case, they've got the Milwaukee skyline, and there's no call to action needed because this is a branding campaign. They're trying to say, hey, it's very clear it's Wintrust Commercial Banking. It's very clear, hey, they're more than just a commercial banker. They're actually trying to build relationship with you, and their goal is to help build Milwaukee business. And then a nice little thing with the FDIC to encourage some trust here. So this is a fantastic branding campaign. I can tell you right away, this isn't going to generate many clicks. So we've got to make sure we've established that alignment with the campaign objectives. Bring me to a great question here that someone had typed in. Frank asks, how does one effectively deal with misalignment of the creative to the audience? Right. Occasionally we'll see CPL, cost per lead campaigns that have a problem because it'll be a campaign that may be aligned with a different audience than the one that exists. And we'll get to that specific question, Frank, here, but you did talk about how do you effectively deal with a misalignment and when do you deal with a misaligned campaign? So I've got 3 places that I typically recommend. One is during the sale. So, again, I would say, hey, during the sale, you're going to say, hey, what is the objective of your campaign? What are you trying to accomplish? Is it clicks? Is it leads? Is it a branding message? What is your objective? And then here's what I'll usually do. If they say, hey, we want clicks. We want clicks to our site, and I'm saying that's awesome. So if your objective is clicks, and you're going to measure off of how many clicks you get to your site, please make sure that you're using great direct response tactics, strong incentives, strong call to action, limitations, very clear messaging. Please make sure you're doing that. I can send you a little checklist if you'd like. Now, the other point is if they say, hey, it's a branding campaign, right? We're launching this new product line. We want people to be aware of it. I'm like, okay, awesome. So you're not worried about the amount of clicks you get. Oh, no. We want clicks. Oh, so it's a direct response campaign then? No, it's a branding campaign. So we got to fix that alignment right there at the beginning. Now, how far and how hard you push that, that's part of the relationship knowledge that you've got to have. But this is one of the first places that I'll do it. The second place, and Frank, this is kind of to your question, not directly, but I'll answer your specific one here in a minute. Upon creative delivery, when they deliver the creative to you to put on your site or in your email newsletter or put on your social media profile, you've got to look at that and say, wait a minute, these guys were wanting registrations for this download, but the creative they sent us doesn't say anything about that, doesn't tell people why, doesn't tell people what they're going to get, doesn't tell people to do that. You've got to go back to the advertiser. You've got to say, hey, we got a misalignment here on this. It's totally fine. I think you're going to have a great brand impact with this, but you're not going to get the clicks that you told me about. And then finally, after the campaign, when things are done, good, bad, or ugly, always close the loop. The worst thing you can do as a seller is leave an advertiser wondering where their money went if they just flushed their money down the toilet because they can't see it. Always close that loop and say, hey, point out if there were any disconnects, or point out, say, hey, this is a great lead generation campaign. Here's what we did, or this was a great branding campaign. Here's the reach and the frequency that you got off the campaign. You always close that loop back with the metrics and the goal and the creative, even if there was a misalignment through any of these. Dan, another question that came up here was, hey, how do you do this without damaging the relationship with your advertiser? I think a lot of sellers are very afraid of talking about this because they don't want to critique their advertisers.
Yeah, well, it's not easy. I mean, we're not in the business of, calling people's babies ugly, but if someone sends you something and it's just not going to work and it, we as the people selling the space have to be able to sleep well at night and say, I had to intervene here. I had to offer my 2 cents, my constructive criticism, and say that in my humble opinion on this side of the sale here, and having seen a number of advertisers submit things that were maybe even worse than this, and plenty that's been better. You're not so much a hit and run salesperson at this point. You're the trusted business advisor. It sounds canned and corny, but maybe you lose the deal if someone says, well, then I'm not going to do it. Or maybe they say, well, can you design something better? I'm happy to do that. I don't always have the bandwidth, but I'll make an effort to do it, because I'd rather be able to say, look, we put the best ad that had the clearest message and most effective campaign together for you, as opposed to me just taking the money and on to the next client. Because bad news travels fast, and if it doesn't work, it makes them look bad, it makes you look bad. And just like any Yelp reviews for restaurants, there's probably like 100 times more reviews that talk about how bad their service was at a restaurant or how crappy the steak was, as opposed to when it's expected to be a good, dining experience. It's not easy, but I think, the more you can get ahead of a lot of these things, the more you'll earn the respect and the trust for the future.
Yep. I remember when I was at Penton Media, we had a Verizon run a big campaign across a bunch of our sites. It was a 6-digit campaign, easy. And I remember talking with the person who was placing this, and she was great. I remember then we got the creative in, and at that point it was actually still a flash creative, believe it or not. But it was this beautiful creative, but it animated, and their goal at the end of the day was to get people to click through to the site to analyze to get a corporate cell phone plan was what they're trying to sell. But I remember it was beautiful, but there was no incentive, no real call to action. And then the little learn more button was only on during the last 2 seconds of the animation. And the entire rest of the creative wasn't clickable except for that little button. I called her up when I saw the creative. I'm like, hey, I don't want to kill this campaign, but I've got to let you know, this is what I saw. I saw these issues with your campaign. I know your goal is to try to get clicks. And you could just hear her voice on the phone. She's like, oh my God, you're absolutely right. This is not right. She's like, well, we don't have time to change the creative, so just go ahead and run it. So we ran it for that month, and sure, we got a 0.01% click-through rate, something horrible. And that month, I called her up, said, hey, I know we had this. We're supposed to run again next month. Do you have a new creative? She's like, we still haven't had time to do it, but hey, I appreciate you letting me know. Just go ahead and run it again. Finally, they ran up running that same creative 3 months in a row, got sucky click-through rates, but they came back and bought another campaign from us later because we actually took the time to make that alignment without necessarily calling them out on it and saying that their campaign sucked. Anyway, Frank, your question about you'll occasionally will get an ad that is aligned for a different audience than the one that exists. Like, for example, you said like maybe a technical product engineering focused campaign to a primarily management audience. That's a different kind of campaign misalignment. And that's something that I would also bring up and during the sale, when you get the creative post-sale, I'd say, hey, we've got a primarily management oriented audience, and you did very technical engineering creative, which is fine. You're going to get some impact of that, but it's probably not going to be as effective as it could be. I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing that out as well. This is what's going to set us apart from the Googles, from the Facebooks, from the other big programmatic agencies that are out there, at least in my opinion. All right. Time's running down here a little bit. However, I appreciated a couple of volunteers. Dan, you want to help me analyze a couple pieces of creative here? Let me share my screen real fast. This is always one of my favorite little things to do. Okay, so Providence Business News, regional business publisher up in Providence, Rhode Island. Great company out there. Thanks, Anne-Marie, for volunteering this. Okay, so I want to just look at a couple different creatives real quickly, real briefly, and let's analyze it. So first of all, we got this super leaderboard up here. SBDC, gain business knowledge with expert-led no-cost training, register today. Okay, I actually think this is a pretty decent direct response creative. That you know who it is? Mm-hmm. Anne-Marie, I'll talk with you later. Don't auto-rotate your ads. I was just about to click on that ad. Your advertiser would have just about gotten the click. Don't auto-rotate these ads. It's a great way to get more impressions, but it's going to destroy your click-through rate. So there you go. I'll get off the case on that. Anyway, a couple little things I'll go down to here as well. Here's one. Cox Business, connect your customers to 99%, 100 megabits, $64 a month, switch today. Okay, there's a direct response. They are trying to get you to switch over. However, I'll just analyze this real quickly. I think you're going too far too fast with this creative. If I were talking to Cox and say, hey, I'm not ready to switch today, but this is like saying, like walking into a coffee shop, seeing someone who looks cute and saying, it switched again on me. And saying, hey, would you marry me? I'm not ready to switch. But if it was really like a little calculator or something like that said, hey, see how much you could save with our simple calculator, that'd be a better way to go about it. Here you go, Tufts Health Plan. Better health benefits for mind, body, and business. Learn more. Okay, so technically this is a call to action. Learn more. It is the weakest call to action out there. And I'm going to screenshot this before it rotates off because I don't want to do that here again.
That's a classic example of like a branding message with hopes, with ambitions of being direct response.
Exactly, Dan. I'll bet you. This is a branding creative because it's a message. Tufts Health Plan, better health benefits for mind, body, and business. That's a message association, brand favorability. But with hopes of being a direct response campaign, they're probably going to want clicks, but be disappointed for clicks because there's no real reason, there's no real incentive for me to click other than, I'm kind of curious. I got nothing better to do with my time right now than to click learn more. So good point, Dan.
That would be fine without the learn more field. And it would be a lot like the residential real estate branding ad you showed in the deck, where it's just a short and sweet line and then logo, happy person, and the company fine print.
Yep.
I don't know.
So we could go through some more here. Again, Johnson & Wales University, powered by purpose, learn more, same kind of thing. I love what you said, Dan. These are branding creatives trying to be a direct response creative. That's a great point. Let me bring up one more here, another site here. John, thank you. We'll look at weddingessentials.ca. Yay, I like that. Weddingessentials.ca. Let's see here. John, do you have, let's see if we have, okay, this is not traditional ads. This is more of a, this looks like more of a directory type here than online ads. So I'll probably skip that one for now. Let's go to another kind of consumer-based website. Let's go to Minneapolis St. Paul magazine as an example. So here's Minneapolis St. Paul. Here, it's all here. Plan your getaway, Mall of America. Okay, this is one of those where, again, not the strongest call to action, but there's a call to action. Plan your getaway. Okay, there's something there to be said by that. Let's refresh this, see if we get a different one. It's a homepage takeover, probably a homepage takeover. Let's look at this. Okay. Unlock your home's potential. M.A. Peterson, design, build, renew. So this is a home design expert. First of all, my pet peeve: don't ever put your URL on a web ad. Why? You think, is someone actually going to take the time to get out a piece of paper, write down the URL so they can come back to it later and type it in? No, they're going to click. This is wasted space. This text is too small. And again, get inspired is a very, very weak call to action on there. So anyway, you guys get the idea. I don't want to go too deep into here. Gourmet Pantry Virtual Silent Auction. Again, another URL. April 5th through 9th. Sponsors. It doesn't really tell me what I'm going to, what am I going to get out of this? What's the benefit? What you got to think about, what's the benefit? Why should someone click? And you can coach your advertisers on that. Anyway, that's probably kicking the horse as much as we can at this point, Dan. We're kind of out of time, but is there anything more that you'd like to add to this, Dan?
I think we covered a lot of ground. I would say, aside from my past life as a graphic designer, I also sold for Clear Channel, and one of the formats that we sold were the taxi top ads here in Boston. And the rule of thumb there, it translates to everything now. And I'm probably not telling anyone anything they don't already know, but it's just worth continuing to be our mantra in this space, which is that, now more than ever, the incredibly shrinking attention span of the general public. We've got such a fraction of a second or two to get people's eyeballs to really give them a message that they'll remember, they'll want to do something about. And again, frequency is built into this also. It's not like when we sold ads on top of taxis, someone said, oh, let me just buy one and have it drive around. You would need that repetition of message, but the message needed to be as short and sweet as possible. It's half science, it's half art. Obviously, the brand, the color of your brand's logo, the look and feel of your font, the clarity of the message, the sharpness of the message, literally the font not being blurry or breaking down. All of these things are why it's like similar to why we get up and comb our hair in the morning and shave and brush our teeth, is that it needs to be this perfectly presented thing that once they see it 7, 8, 9, 20 times, then they'll start remembering it and then they'll want to do something about it. Unless you're giving away $300 bills, like I said before, but even still, it takes more than once to get people to take some action there. So the message needs to be right to the point. Just get rid of the clutter. There was clutter right there in that ad up at the top, but
there was a house ad, but
yeah. But again, I understand there's extremes on both ends. There's the ads that can be incredibly lucky. That can be incredibly ugly. And I'm not saying that one was, but I don't know if anyone was watching the Super Bowl and remember those Coinbase QR code commercial that aired during halftime. That was like, it was puzzling and ugly and seemed vague. And I know all of that was on purpose. And I'm sure there were like 20 board meetings at least on when they finally came to that decision of this is how it's going to look, and hours of editing and viewing to make it look unlike everything else. So there's something to be said about doing something completely different, but it's hard to stand out unless you have $500,000 to buy 30 seconds of airtime during the Super Bowl. Right. So work with what you have, keep the message short and sweet and powerful. And again, make sure that it's sending people to a place where they have to do as little effort as possible to engage and spend time on your website. So in other words, you can have the real estate of the storefront, you can have the nice sign, you can have the nice lights, the mannequins and everything. But when people walk into the store, then what? You have to make sure someone's there to greet them and show them around.
Well, Dan, thank you for joining me today. Gang, thank you so much for being here for this session on advertiser bad campaign alignment. Get out there, have those conversations with your advertisers, and let me know how it goes. This is transformative for a lot of media companies when you do it and do it right. But that's it for this week. And I just want to say thank you again, Dan. Have a great day.